Hey guys, welcome to today's video. On my last video, I had a lot of comments asking for cheaper knives or what would be the best knife to get into flipping with, and I think I found it. It's this knife right here. It's on Amazon for $30, so let's get to it. Okay, so what kind of specs do you get for $30 on Amazon? Well, as a matter of fact, they're pretty good. This knife weighs 4.2 ounces normally, and 4.3 ounces with the latch on it, but I suggest you remove that as quickly as possible. With the latch on it, it has very bad balance, but as soon as you take the latch off, these things have surprisingly good balance. They actually have G10 scales, so real G10. They come in 3 different colors, so you've got orange and red, you have red and blue, and then you just have regular black and silver. Now, when it comes to the actual pivots on these knives, they run off of bearings, and the bearings are actually pretty good. Bearing knives are very easy to do because you don't have to worry too much about the actual tolerances in the same way that you have to do with bushing knives. Most bearing knives, you can just kind of slap bearings on them and do a little bit of a race, and they'll have very, very good play kind of out of the box. So the liners are steel under G10, but it is real G10, and while steel isn't ideal, the knife is $30, so suck it up. So unfortunately, the hardware on this knife is actually pretty terrible. It's T8 and T6 size screws, which are already pretty small, and on top of that, the hardware is actually very, very bad. It's just cheap China crap. As a matter of fact, what I suggest with this knife is taking apart the first time you get it, cleaning it up a little bit, and then Loctiting it together permanently. It's a cheap knife. It's meant to be put together and then just used until you get a better knife. Okay, so out of the box, the knife weighs 4.3 ounces because of that latch, but once you remove the latch, the knife is only 4.2 ounces, which honestly feels really good in the hand. I'll show you how to remove the latch a little bit later in this video, but that's definitely what I suggest doing. So let's go ahead and get into how this knife flips. Now, for me, this knife is really, really good price to performance. I think it flips really well, especially for being $30 freaking. It has pretty good balance overall. It has a very neutral point of balance. The grip from the G10 is very good, and it feels good in the hands after you've done the mods, I suggest. Overall, you get pretty good swing from the bearings. It's not overly fast, and it's not overly grindy either. Once you find the right balance, this knife feels really good in the hands. It does really well in aerials, and it also feels good for chaplains and things like that. The handle size on this knife, while it is on the short side, is something you can get used to relatively quickly. It does make things like choker fanning a little bit harder than it might be on a longer knife, but overall, it definitely is something you can get used to very quickly if you flip it a lot. Now, the latch on this knife is impossible for you to use while flipping. It totally throws off the balance and is just a pain in the ass. It's definitely based off of Maxace designed spring latches, which in my opinion are some of the best spring latches out there, but the difference being is that Maxace actually uses titanium to make their spring latch, which makes it very light and doesn't throw off the balance too much. The latch on this knife is entirely steel and it is very heavy, so you have to remove it. The Zen pin design on this knife is actually really good, especially for flipping. There's a really nice bounciness to the Zen pins, and they feel really good when you're doing openings and closings. The Zen pin nipple on this knife is very similar to the Squid Trainer V2, where it protrudes a lot more than it probably should, and so you can get pinched relatively easily. Now, for me, I got used to that, and I haven't been pinched by this knife at all. Even when I first got it, I never got pinched by it. But if you've never flipped a knife like this before, you probably will get pinched, but don't let that discourage you. Just kind of adjust the way you're flipping and you'll figure it out pretty quickly. Overall, that's my more professional flipper's opinion on this knife, but I wanted to see what a newbie would think of this knife. So I got my friend Brandon to try it out for a week, and I'm gonna have him go ahead and tell you what he thinks.
Hey there! So my history with Balisongs isn't really that long. I've been flipping them for maybe a little bit over a year now. And so for someone like me looking into getting into this hobby, I have of course had the privilege of flipping a ton of Will's knives. But so for me, someone like me, all I've owned up to this point is a Squiddy. And I love the Squiddy, it flips great, but there's really not a whole lot you can do with this Squiddy in terms of modification. And it flips really well right out of the box. It's 40 bucks, it's great. But so whenever it comes to these, and you don't don't want to spend, 10, 15, $20 on a Balisong. You can find those all over Amazon, and I flip them, and even with my level of experience, which is still relatively low within the Balisong world, I never found them fun to flip. I never wanted to pick it up. I never found myself wanting to take it with me on just a daily outing. I was going out. Would I want to take, a $10 Balisong with me? No, because I wouldn't enjoy flipping it. So if you are willing to put in the time to really start to get to understand how a Balisong works and do the modifications that Will recommends, it feels and flips absolutely great. If you are looking to get into flipping Balisongs, spend the little bit extra money. Don't buy the $10, $15 stuff. Spend the extra money. It's really not that much more. This is $30, but this is an absolutely great starting point. And if it were me, 100% go for this. I've personally been loving it, and I think it's an excellent EDC, even if you are into the higher end stuff and really just want something cheap that feels more familiar and maybe a little bit different than a squiddy, because a squiddy is pretty light and it's plastic. So if you want something that really feels solid, I couldn't recommend this enough.
So unfortunately, to be good, I do think this knife does require some mods, and we're gonna go over those right now. The first one is to remove the spring latch. The second one is to sand the G10 to make it nicer to flip. The third one would be to add a little bit of mink oil or any kind of oil to the G10 just to make it smoother and look prettier. And then finally, you wanna Loctite all the screws down so that they don't go anywhere. So let's go ahead and get into how to do each of these mods in detail. The supplies you'll need to be able to do these mods are relatively simple, and I'll have them all linked down below. The first thing you're gonna need is a good quality Torx set. I suggest getting a Weehaw Torx set, but that can be a little bit expensive, but it's definitely a worthy purchase if you're gonna be in this hobby for a long time. But you wanna make sure that you at least have one T6 bit and one T8 bit. You're also gonna need 1500 grit sandpaper, or slightly finer or slightly more coarse. Either one will work. 1500 grit is what worked for me, but you could probably go all the way down to 800 grit and it would still work just fine. You're also gonna need Loctite Red for this. The Loctite Red is the permanent version of Loctite, so it's permanently fixed and you don't ever have to worry about stripping the screws again. The last thing you'll need is Mink Oil, which is a nice waterproofing oil that you can add to the G10. Any oil would really work here. Mink Oil is just very convenient and honestly what I suggest to have in the future if you plan on continuing to mod Balisongs. Okay, so the first mod, you're gonna wanna remove the spring latch. To do that, you're gonna need to loosen the actual initial pivot on the bite handle side. You wanna be very careful when you're loosening this pivot because that pivot has a very good chance of stripping. So you want to make sure to squeeze the knife together and very carefully press in with your T8 bit Torx and unscrew it. From there, you're gonna want to take out the screws on the body. You don't need to take out the pivot, you just need to loosen it. But the body screws, you do need to take out. You only need to take them out on one side though. So first we're gonna take out the screw in the Zen pin. Same thing, you're gonna squeeze the knife and slowly and carefully press down and twist to take out that T6 screw. Then you can let go and you don't have to squeeze the knife anymore, but you do need to be careful as you take out the middle screw on the bite handle side. And then finally, we're gonna move to the bottom and take out that screw. So now as you can see, once the knife is open, you can slide away the G10 and you'll actually see that there are two set screws secretly inside of the knife, and that's actually holding the knife together. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and unscrew these two screws. They're both T6 and you do need to be just as careful as with the body screws with these screws. But you're going to unscrew them and that will release the knife as you can see here so that you can just pull the spring latch right out of there. Now, if you wanted to, you could leave one of the pins from the spring latch in there and then you could try making your own paracord latch, but I prefer latchless flipping, so that's what I suggest, is just removing the latch entirely and going completely latchless. Okay, now we're gonna move on to sanding the G10. Now, the G10 itself comes out of the box pretty sharp and it's kind of annoying. I suggest using these little sanding squares that I got of sandpaper. I'm currently using the 1500 grit version, and it makes it really easy to do this very quickly. As you can see, I'm just gonna do 3 or 4 passes over each corner of the knife. And this can take a second, but you just wanna go by and do every single corner of the knife. Then once you've gotten that and you feel good about it, you're gonna wanna go in and on these middle sections, just shove the corner of your little square of sandpaper in there and go ahead and sand those off a little bit too. As I said, 5 or 6 repetitions with the sandpaper and you'll be golden. You really don't have to do a lot of sanding, it just helps. Now we're gonna apply the mink oil. Now you can use any oil at this point. I know some people already have knife lubricant oil that they like, or gun oil. You can rub that onto the G10 as well. So as you can see, I'm just gonna get a little bit of mink oil on my finger and then I'm gonna rub it directly onto the G10, and it does an incredible job of immediately fixing the kind of cloudy look of the G10 and makes it much more saturated, much prettier looking. It also will pretty quickly fix and make the texture of the G10 feel a lot better. Once you've gotten all of the G10 covered with the mink oil, go ahead and grab a rag or even a paper towel, and you can use that to just rub off the excess mink oil, and you'll have really nice G10 left over. Finally, we're gonna Loctite the knife. Now this part is the hardest part for sure because you just wanna be extremely careful of stripping any of the screws. Now thankfully we don't really need to Loctite any of the body screws, though we will tighten them slightly. What we do need to Loctite are the 2 pivot screws and the 4 Zen pin screws. But what I do is I add a little bit of the Loctite to the headphone cleaning tool and then I just dip it right into the pivot. As you can see, the pivot absorbs the Loctite and then I can just screw the screw back in and I don't have to worry about making a mess everywhere. The other fun part about a headphone cleaning tool is that you can use the brush part of the headphone tool to actually brush off the pivots of your Balisong when they get dirty. So finally, once you've gotten all of that, the only thing left to do is to add a little bit of any kind of lube that you want to the pivots. I'm currently using Balislime from OSP Performance, but you can use Benchmade Blue Lube or Nano Oil or any kind of oil that you prefer, and just add that oil to the pivots and you are ready to go. Anyways, that's pretty much it for this video. I definitely would suggest this knife to anybody looking to get into Balisongs. It's definitely a great first flipper and will absolutely do everything you need it to do. Honestly, I would probably suggest this knife even to people that already have a Balisong collection just because it's super cheap and you can use it as a beater. It's pretty nice overall and I really like it. But anyways, thanks for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed this video and I really hope that you enjoy the knife if you end up buying it because I really want to see more people getting into flipping and I think this is the perfect way to do that. If you do end up purchasing this Balisong, make sure to tell me what you think about it in the comments. I'd love to hear if you think it's good, if you think it's bad, if you did any extra mods to it. I'd love to hear whatever you did. Also, if you want to know anything about any knives, definitely ask me in the comments and I'll do my best to respond to you. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the moment. I'll be around. Subscribe, please.
This is why I shouldn't have $1,000 Balisong. This video is proof.